Hello and welcome to Nigeria, the Road to 2019, a series of programs where Arise News places the audience and the choice at the heart of our coverage of the upcoming presidential elections. I'm Charles Anyagulu. Coming up in the next 60 minutes, all the news, comment and analysis that provide unrivaled insight into Nigeria 2019, including as the Buhari administration and the ruling APC launch some of their sharpest bare-knuckle attacks against the main opposition PDP and its coalition of supporters, we ask how credible are these allegations that they are mobilizing terrorists for violence. We speak to a leading member of the opposition coalition of United Political Parties, or CUPP. And later, the growing phenomenon of Kingsley Moghalu. In addition to being the flag bearer for the Young Progressive Party, he's part of the swelling crowd of candidates bidding to unseat President Buhari in the 2019 elections, now just weeks away. But according to many polls, he stands out amongst the pack. Or does he? We'll find out. Now, with just over 3 weeks to go before the presidential election, the Buhari administration and its ruling APC party appear to be sharpening their attack lines as the election campaign enters its final and decisive phase. The government says it's received credible intelligence suggesting that opposition parties have been mobilizing terrorists and armed bandits, including Boko Haram militants, to provoke chaos during the upcoming general elections. Here's the Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, addressing a news conference in Abuja and making the claims.
Federal government is in possession of credible intelligence to the effect that widespread violence being orchestrated by the opposition is threatening the 2019 general elections. You have definitely seen the massive and warm reception that President Muhammadu Buhari has been receiving across the country compared to the thinning crowds that have been attending the opposition rallies. Having realized that their fortunes have dwindled badly ahead of the polls, the desperate opposition is orchestrating widespread violence with a view to truncating the elections, thus triggering a constitutional crisis that could snowball into the establishment of an interim government. Before you accuse the government of crying wolf, let me tell you, gentlemen, that we have credible intelligence that armed bandits and Boko Haram insurgents have been mobilized to engage in massive attacks and other acts of violence in several states across the country, including but not limited to Adamawa, Bauchi, Borno, Benue, Kano, Kaduna, Nasarawa, Plateau, Taraba, and Zamfara. The Benue-based armed criminal group, led by Tawasi Akwaza, also known as Ghana, has been commissioned to strike some targets in Benue, Nasarawa, and Taraba states. In Kano State, a group of notorious miscreants have been mobilized by some prominent opposition leaders to provoke massive chaos before, during, and after the elections. There's also an international dimension to the evil plan. Some armed mercenaries from Niger Republic have been contracted to attack top government functionaries, including state governors across the Northwest, between now and the election. The federal government is taking every possible measure to counter these evil plans by patriotic anarchists and ensure the success of the 2019 general elections.
The Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, well, the opposition PDP and its CUPP coalition of political parties have robustly denied the allegations, accusing the government of plotting to clamp down on their leaders under the guise of fighting the insurgency and crime. They say this is a classic case of government-sponsored pre-election intimidation in which the incumbent leadership and its ruling party agents are attempting to fend off threats to their power by harassing opponents and trumping up charges against the political opposition because they fear they will lose the election. Well, for more on this, I'm joined now in the studio by the spokesman for the Coalition of United Political Parties, CUPP, Ikenga Ugochinyere. Thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Thank you for inviting me.
What's your reaction to those allegations by the Information Minister, Lai Mohammed, and by extension, the Buhari administration and its ruling APC party?
Like we said yesterday, that the statement is outrageous. It's the height of desecration of the sanctity of presidential governance to see the Minister of Information of the Republic making such wide, baseless allegations on national TV just few days after he brought up the BankPHB issue. And the candidate came back and no charges have been filed, no questioning. Each time the opposition have a mileage with every issue, he comes with wide allegation. When he was in America, he came with the BankPHB. Obasanjo released a letter that had damning, content about the concerns key stakeholders have expressed in the process. In order to distract attention, Lai Mohammed, came again rampaging with such a wide allegation. Let me say this. This allegation, most of them borders on treason. These are high-level allegations. Terrorism and all sorts of things, interim government. If the government have this intelligence that he said is credible, which we know there's no credible intelligence. They don't have the capacity to have credible intelligence. But let's assume that he have credible intelligence. How come he has not started this investigation? How come he has not arrested one single individual? Why is he, with all due respect to him, ranting like somebody in the market square? You have the government institutions, you have the DSS, you have the police. Is it, why are you trying to, create panic in the system? Why not go and do your investigation and arrest the people that are involved? The states he mentions are either the state that don't have governorship candidates, that are doing everything possible to, bring violence so that there will be no election. They are calling for emergency in Zamfara because they don't have candidates. You already seen that they are losing steam in Benue. You see what is happening across the whole state. So all these allegations, to us, they are planning to foment troubles in those areas. And when they bring this violence that is going to be bloody on the people there, they want to blame it on opposition. And also they're looking for, the foundation upon which they will start arresting key opposition leaders in those states on the guise that they were the people planning for interim government and terrorism and so on and so forth. This is government that, for the last 3 years, they have been unable to secure the lives and properties of Nigerian people. In Borno, for instance, they said they have technically defeated the scourge called Boko Haram. But you saw the governor of Borno last time crying when he went to the presidential villa that these terrorists are coming back. So at the end of the day, they want to shift blame for their incompetence. But it's so painful that he can reduce a whole presidential system of governance to this ridicule of making such a wide allegation that people in Onitsha market cannot even make. So right. This is a typical example of fake news. Lai Mohammed is supposed to be charged for fake news.
So you're saying essentially that you do not believe that they have credible evidence?
This is a nonsense allegation.
Right.
Yes, there's no credibility in it.
Have you actually done an examination? Because these are, as you said, they're very profound charges. I mean, coming from the highest levels of government. Have you examined your ranks? I mean, is it possible that some renegade elements within your opposition coalition are making such contacts without your knowledge or the awareness of the central office of your coalition?
Even though I don't speak for the presidential candidate, but all the presidential candidates in the opposition are committed. They are selling their agendas. They are campaigning around the country. These people that are now campaigning, the people making this allegation, nobody in the opposition have time for this kind of things he's talking about. The opposition is sure of victory in 2019. So there's even no way anybody in opposition will be thinking of interim government. They are the ones who want to leave office by May 29. We don't even want them to stay 10 seconds extra. So there's even no way the opposition will want an interim government for what? They are the ones who are looking for a way for interim government so that they can extend their tenure. They are not ready for the election. You can see what they're doing to every institution. We are 20-something days to election. Look at the kind of thing they're talking about. Look at the kind of thing they're doing at the Code of Conduct Tribunal. If you went to Code of Conduct Tribunal today, you will be shocked that the same federal government that said they have no hand in the plan to remove Justice Onogem, the CJN, and install Tanko Mohammed. You remember when the federal government, denied the allegation? Today, inside the court, the federal government brought out a motion with only 2 prayers that the court should order them to swear in Tanko Mohammed and restrain Onogem from parading himself as CJN. This is the kind of people you have that is manning the presidential system of government in Nigeria. So all these things are part of, a system they put in place to distract attention from the key issues. We are doing something days to election.
Right.
And these things should not be what Nigerian people should be talking about.
But I'm afraid I still have to ask you that question, because Nigeria has a legitimate government, a government that was voted in by a majority of people in this country. They are democratically and politically charged with looking after this country. Have you actually investigated your ranks to be sure that the government doesn't have a case against you?
Nobody in the opposition have the capacity for what he's talking about. Everybody in the opposition is committed. Look at the outcry idea. We are carrying a huge responsibility from our people to bring this change. So there's even nobody in opposition that have any. That's why we are calling on them to provide an enabling environment. Right. If we have access to violence and terrorist organization and bandits, we'll not be asking for a peaceful environment because we can get it by force. They are the ones that are planning this violence. They are the ones that want to destroy the whole place. There will be no election and they can write results.
Yeah, but they've made some specific charges. One of them is that the leader of the Benue-based armed criminal group has been allegedly paid by the opposition to cause disruption in the Middle Belt.
I know the person they are talking about. He used to work for one of the chieftains of their party. I think they have fallen out, and that's why they're talking about him. I don't want to mention, the name of the person I'm talking about. So if you know that somebody have paid him, then why not grab the person? Why do you need to come and start alerting Nigerians that you're ineffective, that you cannot be able to contain these criminals? They're talking about Kano. It's not anybody's fault that Ganduje was involved in what he was putting in his pocket. Right. Now they are losing that place and they're raising all those allegations because they know if they write result in Kano, the place will burn. And that's why they're making all these frivolous allegations about those key states that they know they're going to lose.
Well, in fairness to the APC, I mean, it all looks like Groundhog Day to ordinary Nigerians like myself who are looking in from the outside in. I mean, because the PDP, if you remember in 2015, accused the APC and its coalition of precisely the same thing in 2015, of colluding with terrorists and fueling unrest. They talked about the same thing. In fact, that was the reason that the PDP, one of the reasons the PDP gave for postponing the election. The election couldn't take place in February when it was supposed to take place. That's the reason the PDP gave. So from that standpoint, it sounds, I mean, it's not entirely novel or new, is it? Those are tactics that both parties employ to their advantage when elections approach.
I don't think in 2015, even though I was on the other side with President Muhammad Buhari and our allied partners, but I don't think PDP made that kind of childish and wild.
No, they did make that. I mean,
I can't remember this kind of allegations.
They made those
allegations.
There
were allegations, but I didn't
think
they went to this low level like
well, I don't
the information
know.
minister did.
I mean,
they didn't go to this low
what
level.
I'm trying to say is that I'm not in any way siding with the government or with the PDP. What I'm saying is that from the point of view of the ordinary Nigerian who's looking at the mess that the two political parties have put this country in since 1999, I mean, it doesn't make a jot of difference. It's like, well, perhaps we should just let them two kill each other and let someone else come in and take over.
No, I think these trends that are happening in high magnitude under the APC-led administration. They seem to be on the low level now, and I can understand the reason. They have a presidential candidate that cannot be able to physically campaign, that have lost touch with reality, that have been unable to fulfill his 3-point promise to the people, that even his mental fitness, like we have already raised, is in question, and we have challenged him, and that's why last time he shied away from the debate. We want Nigerians to question, let him come out and speak to the people. He keeps hiding. There is something they are hiding, and that's why they want to keep us busy with this kind of baseless allegation. Today they talk about about BankPHB, they talk about sponsoring terrorism, they go and write to American embassy, don't issue a citizen visa. They keep saying different things every day. I think Lai Mohammed is trying to save their campaign that is wobbling. That's why he's coming up with this allegation that you can see Nigerian people are not buying into this allegation because that's not what they want to hear. They want to see the president who wants another time in office to convince Nigerians why they should trust him again.
But clearly that is distracting you as well, because I mean you're sitting here defending charges from the federal government. I mean, instead of focusing on transforming Nigeria's democratic sort of face, its economy, etc., instead the situation now seems to be preparing to degenerate into turmoil. And what is more worrying is that when these two political parties, or whatever political parties, fight, it ends up being the ordinary people who pick up the pieces.
Well, since the last 3 years, the people have been suffering as a result of this kind of thing. A government that have been unable to fulfill their promise to the people. This place is now the poverty capital of the world. The country is so divided. People cannot sleep with two eyes closed. The basic responsibility of government under Section 14, which is protection of lives and property, the president has failed woefully. Now he's asking for another mandate. And he has seen the reaction of the Nigerian people. He first of all ran away from signing the enabling law that would have allowed us to have a free and fair election. Now you can see the way he's politicizing the security agencies. And now he's making this kind of wide allegation. For goodness sake, this man is supposed to be commander-in-chief. If there is issues that threaten the sovereign integrity of this country, you fix it, and not this kind of ranting that are doing on TV. And I don't want us to be wasting time talking about, because if Lai Mohammed is just trying to distract us, he just wants us to be talking this so that they can be keeping the man somewhere to be resting.
That's funny. So given all this, I mean, things appear to be quiet at the moment, apart from these allegations. I mean, nobody is arresting anybody yet. There's no sort of fighting going on. So all quiet at the moment, but do you expect this election to be violent?
They are the one preparing the foundation for violence. You can see the blood rally in Lagos. You can see the clampdown on key opposition leaders in different states. As I still speak to you, one of the parties in the coalition, the SMP, the national chairman, was arrested in Oyo the other time, charged in a magistrate court and kept somewhere we don't know. We are aware of the case of Dino Mele that have fulfilled the bail condition as he was about exiting there, about to charge him in another court today. You are aware of Deji Adeyinju, who protested over police involvement in politics. He was arraigned, charged, and then was given bail. As he was leaving the CUPP prison, he was taken again, and then they took him to Kano Central Prison. As I speak to you, he's still in Kano Central Prison. So they're gradually picking our people, charging them with frivolous allegations so that they can put them away. And they are laying the foundation for the crisis. It's not the opposition. They are the ones who doesn't want to give us an enabling environment for the election.
So do you think this election will be violent?
We're praying that this election should not be violent, but these people are preparing the foundation for the violence.
So are you now convinced that this election will not be free and fair, and that the ballot will be tilted in favor of the ruling APC? I mean, in spite of all the assurances from the Electoral Commission?
All they have been doing in the last 1 year is to ensure that the votes Nigerian people are going to cast does not count. All they have been scheming is on how to thwart the free expression of the will of the Nigerian people. As I speak to you today, they are setting up military camps in different states. They call Operation Python. That's a kind of standby strike force. As I speak to you now, they have what they call the rapid response squad that are setting up in states where they feel that the police there will not be doing.
Yeah, but the question I'm asking you is that as a result, I mean, assuming, because these are allegations you're making, assuming that those allegations have a nugget of truth to them, does that convince you that this election will not be free and fair?
Yes, that's our fear, that the president have no intention of conducting free and fair election. When it comes to free and fair election, he has shown that he's a coward.
Right, so if it is not going to be free and fair, if you're convinced that it will not be free and fair, why are you taking part in the first place? Because by taking part, you're legitimizing that election, aren't you?
That's why we've been engaging the electoral body. We saw the decision of the 61 political parties, and INEC shifted ground on 8 items. And that's why we're still insisting on the remaining items like separate accreditation and separate voting, and the transparency of the collection center on the issue of Hamina, to allow political parties to be involved in monitoring the back-end channel of the commission and see the live feed coming from the over 120,000 polling units in the country. When all these efforts were put in does not pay, like I told you, the opposition will activate Opposition Code 20, which is to mobilize our people to exercise the provision of the Administration of Criminal Justice Act under Section 20 that gives them power to perform some police functions like arresting criminals and people committing offense in their presence. That will be the last resort of the opposition in the next few days if they don't provide the enabling environment for the election.
Does it frighten you, the possibilities that you're talking about now? I mean, clearly, as you suggest, they're attempting to scare the opposition and force you to react in such a way, according to you, to get them to use whatever force is available to them against you. Does that frighten you?
It does not frighten us, because we have a responsibility that we are carrying, which is the responsibility of the Nigerian people who wants change, and that the task of stopping these political barbarians falls on the opposition, and will not shy away from that responsibility of saving our people by sending them to where they rightly belong through the ballots.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but the impression, again, we're all looking at this from the outside in, it just looks like all bets are off, in spite of all the parties signing that peace agreement to avoid violence and intimidation and to conduct an above-board campaign and election. I mean, have you guys approached that peace committee to intervene and try and, save the situation before it degenerates further?
Yes, the CUPP has made appeal to the peace committee, because
Right.
most members in the CPP are even talking about pulling out from the peace accord, because we cannot have a peace accord and the peace committee is not doing anything to pressure the ruling government to provide the enabling environment for the election. It is just like we signed a piece of document that is dead on arrival, and these people are doing whatever they like. They can't give us enabling law for the election. They can't allow the security agencies, to play neutral roles, and at the same time, we're hoping that there will be peace. The things that can bring peace, the foundation for peace, is to make sure that this foundation for free and fair election are set in place. If you don't set this foundation, then you're calling for an electoral war that might be more deadly than the electoral crisis of the 1965 and 1983 that led to the collapse of the First and Second Republic. And we don't want that to happen, because it's the same path they are taking with the security agencies. And that's why we're asking that even with the announcement made by the new Inspector General of Police disbanding the structures of the Federal SARS, he should also disband the Rapid Response Squad. They already have it in Rivers, they already have it in Akwa Ibom, they already have it in Benue, they already have it in Imo. And most people in that Rapid Response Squad are people that have been involved in extrajudicial killing. They are heartless set of people, and they are being used for electoral purposes. And we're expecting to also disband them and allow the regular police force to do their work.
I have to say that this whole thing is just desperately disappointing, because I mean that there was so much placed on this election. The election campaign is supposed to be a form or a forum where the exchange of political ideas and visions and critiques are supposed to be able to take place. I mean, is that still possible in Nigeria today?
It pains me so much that President Mohammed brought an election for over a decade, complained about the electoral process. One had expected when we supported him that in 2015, the first thing we would have done was to create an enabling environment for free and fair election. It is the disappointment that the president brought to be on the system that is showing, it is his body language. He is supporting these rampaging political barbarians. If the president can subject himself to play within the rule set for this game, I am telling you that tension will be de-escalated in the next few hours. He is the one that is causing this problem.
Yeah, but how do you keep, as I asked you before, from legitimizing this alleged repression that you fear is coming your way? Because if you throw as much dirt as your opponent, it could look as if you're all the same as far as ordinary Nigerians are concerned.
We're not throwing dirt at them. They are the ones that are attacking left, right, and center. They are the ones that is on rampage. Everything the opposition have said has turned out to be true. When I released the document that was signed by the Attorney General of the Federation freezing the account of the CJ without going through due process, it turned out to be true. When we talked about that they had plans to remove the CJN today and swear in Tanko Mohammed as acting CJN, you saw it play out in the court today. So we don't say things that we are not sure.
Yeah, but that's not, I mean, there's nothing particularly untoward about that. If the Chief Justice...
Hold on.
Let me make the point.
Yes.
In any civilized country, if the Chief Justice of the country is facing allegations such as the ones he's facing, they would immediately, nobody would even tell them, they would step aside until the issue is investigated and completed.
We're talking about a code of conduct tribunal that has the statutory responsibilities of trying issues that have to do with the access, forced access declaration. And here we're talking about the office of the Chief Justice of the Federation that is secured under Section 292 of the Constitution in terms of removal, which requires 2/3 of the Senate. And somebody sneaking in at the code of conduct tribunal and then asking that the CJN should be stopped from parading himself and that Tanko Mohammed why we now start the trial? You can see that from day one, what they just want is to remove the CJN and put Lai Mohammed. They are not even interested in the allegation of false assassination declaration. That is not even in the intention of the people who are behind this.
So what sort of space do you think there now is, given all of this, with the elections literally less than 30 days away?
We have our fears that if things don't improve, the desires of Nigerians to have a free and fair election that will be violent, free, might be dashed.
Yeah, but what options are open to you to try and prevent that from happening?
That's why we're appealing to the government. That's why we're engaging the Electoral Commission. That's why we're speaking to the Inspector General of Police. You're aware the opposition had a 7-day ceasefire. We have not said anything about it because we want to come with clean mind. We want to engage him. That's why we're doing all this engagement. That's why we're talking. The other day we were with the European election observers to table these fears. That's what all stakeholders are raising this concern. You saw the one Obasanjo raised. We just hope that the president will listen for once and do the right thing, and these tensions will calm down. And we'll go to election. Anybody that wins, let the person take.
Okay, well, the bottom line really is that nobody knows what's going to happen. I mean, at the moment, it sounds as if you're making a big point against the government. The government have made their case, but they haven't arrested anybody. Okay, they have said that they have evidence that this is happening. They haven't said that the evidence is going to lead to arrests or detentions of people. But you're sounding a note of warning just in case it leads to that. Is that right?
No, we're sure that's what they want to do because I've done it in the past. These are people who can frame...
Yeah, but how could they have done it in the past? This is the first election.
These are the people who, because of a sticker on the car...
You mean the PDP has done it in the past?
No, these are people who, because of a sticker on the car of somebody that arrested for armed robbery and wanted to charge the Senate president for...
Yeah, but what I don't understand is that this is their first election since they came in. This is their first major election.
Did you watch what happened in Osun?
Presidential election. No, I mean on the presidential level.
But they have started doing it in different elections they have conducted. They have visited so much violence on the opposition. It's clear. You can see it from their day-to-day activities.
Right. I'm not trying to justify what they're doing, but can you put your hand on your heart and say that the PDP hasn't done something similar in the past 16 years?
Today, as I sit here, I speak for the coalition of United Political Parties that have PDP as a member.
Right.
My party is APP. So I'm not a member of PDP, but that notwithstanding, the kind of rascality and impunity we're having today, we have never had it in the last 20 years. And I want to tell you this. These people don't want us to discuss about governance issue. They don't want us to discuss about what they're going to offer or what they did in the last way. They want us to keep talking about allegations like people are sponsoring Boko Haram, like people are involved in PHB collapse. But we want to discuss about security. We want to discuss whether he has been able to secure those women who are being killed night and day in Zamfara, in Katsina, in Plateau, in Benue. We want to discuss about corruption. How he has been able to fight corruption without fear or favor. All the corrupt people around him, what he's doing about it. We want to talk about the economy that is collapsing. Today, this place is the poverty capital of the world. And look at the statistics from the National Bureau. It's so bad. People are losing their job every day. The president have nothing to say about it because with all respect to him, in terms of leadership, he is totally an incompetent leader. And because he has nothing to offer, that's why he wants us to be discussing these Akara issues. And that's not what Nigerian people want to hear.
Okay, I want to say thank you very much indeed, Ikenga Ugochinyere, who is the spokesman for the coalition, the opposition coalition of United Political Parties, the CUPP. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you for having me.
You're watching Nigeria, the road to 2019. Plenty more still ahead, including the growing phenomenon of Kingsley Moghalu. In addition to being the flag bearer for the Young Progressive Party, he's part of the swelling crowd of candidates bidding to unseat President Buhari in the 2019 elections just weeks away. According to many of the polls, he stands out amongst the pack. Or does he? We'll find out. Kingsley Moghalu is coming up next. Stay with us.